Today I wanted to go over the synastry of these two very famous individuals on the internet. Everyone's favorite Aries and Virgo couple, Jenna and Julian. I wanted to go over their synastry, talk about their compatibility, like just combining their two birth charts. If you're not familiar with what synastry is, it is basically the more detailed version of compatibility in astrology, where we take each person's individual birth chart and put them side by side or one on top of the other and see how they align, or how one person's planets communicate in a way with the other person's planets. Okay, so first I want to go over Julian's birth chart, and I think it's really important to take into account like what each person is like individually and what their preferences are, what their natural inclinations are, how they might naturally act in a relationship, as well as like what they can bring forth. And so like I want to look at that and examine that first for each partner before looking at how they combine together. So Julian has a lot of fire in his chart. Obviously, he has Sun, Venus, Mercury, and midheaven in Aries, with that Aries Mercury conjunct the midheaven. So that gives him that sort of trickster sort of personality, this really like playful and really like youthful personality. Somebody who enjoys just talking about things, talking about themselves, talking about their opinions, sharing them with the public, being just somebody that's really known for like their thoughts and for the way that they think and the way that they communicate. He has Neptune and Uranus on the descendant, which leads to him being attracted towards unconventional relationships with people or partners that are unexpected for him, or partners that other people would not really expect him to go for. And he would ideally, a partnership for him will be one that is idealistic and one that is playful, one that challenges other people's expectations, like I said, and also has a sense of imagination to them. Relationships or people who are just sort of unpredictable. And along with this, he also has a 7th house ruler, which is Saturn in Aquarius in the 8th house. So that indicates loyalty all the way. He's looking for that ride or die partner with whom he can be closely bonded but still retain his independence, because remember, he still has that Neptune and Uranus on his descendant, as well as the actual sign that his 7th house ruler is in Aquarius. So that factor, along with the Uranus on the descendant, will indicate needing that independence within the partnership. And he's going to also want somebody who is, or be gravitated towards somebody or a partner who is sort of like weird and unusual, but also has a depth to them. Superficial relationships, or just ones that are very casual, will not really do it for him. He has his 7th house ruler also squared to Pluto, which means he is an intense partner. He can be really suspicious about his partner. Along with the Saturn in the 8th house, the descendant ruler being in the 8th house, that also adds to this. So it's also square to Pluto. And he might have a way of just handling his relationships that are sort of, he needs to know everything about them, and it can come off in a way that can be a little bit overbearing. But he also has his 7th house ruler also sextiles to Venus. So while he can be really intense and suspicious about his partner, he is also very patient. And this aspect generally is just about understanding that real love takes time, and it takes patience, and just waiting for the right person to come along. And they're not just gonna settle for anybody. But Saturn really slows down his Venus in Aries, and it creates a sense of discipline around that Venus in Aries. And it's also interesting because his Venus in Aries is also in the 10th house, and that is also associated with Saturn. His Venus in Aries is in the 10th house, square to the Neptune Uranus on the descendant. So he's going to love somebody who he can admire and look up to, somebody who can be a role model to him, somebody who is reputable, probably somebody who's famous, and someone who he can also like put on a pedestal and have these sort of expectations for them. Neptune and Uranus are all about the expectation. Neptune with Venus square to Neptune indicates expecting somebody to live up to an idealized image that you have of them in your head. And then Venus square to Uranus expects the independence and expects you to always keep them on their toes. So yeah, his chart is, there is a lot of that. Neptune and Uranus is going to be a really outstanding factor in his relationship. So he's ultimately looking for someone who he can be independent with, but also be playful with, and also still have that like loyalty and ride or die element to it. Someone also very unusual or stands out of the crowd, but also has a depth to them. And okay, so moving on from Julian's chart, I want to talk about Jenna's. So right off the bat, she also has a planet that is conjunct the descendant, and that would be Chiron. It's Chiron in Gemini, and already we're seeing a parallel with Julian's chart. Julian also has, guess what he has in his first house? Chiron. And if you remember what that planet was that was conjunct his midheaven, which is Mercury. Mercury rules Gemini, and he embodies the Chiron qualities that Jenna is looking for in a partner. So Chiron on the descendant is looking for a person who they can save, or who can save them. You know, that their relationships are really going to lean towards helping and serving and guiding somebody who is sort of, they can help support in some way. That can be in many different forms, whether that be somebody who they can emotionally support, someone who they can help climb up the social ladder, somebody who they can help financially, or whatever it might be. Their relationships Chiron in the 7th house people will have relationships that have that sort of savior quality to them. And keep that in mind, because we're going to come back to that later on in further analyzing Jenna's chart, because it is going to come up again. So Chiron conjunct the descendant in Gemini, and so she's also looking for somebody who she can share her thoughts with, somebody that she can just talk to, somebody who she can have like a decent back and forth, and just decent natural back and forth with. And preferably somebody who does have a lot of like 3rd house overlays with her, or a lot of aspects to her Mercury, because Mercury is the ruler of her descendants. So if Julian has any planets that form strong aspects to her Mercury, that's really going to trigger that like I want to have a relationship with you type of feeling, or that type of vibe. And she also has Uranus and Neptune in the 1st house. And what were those planets that Julian had in his 7th house, or a conjunct his descendant? Uranus and Neptune. So it's so interesting how one person's 7th house planets match up with the other person's 1st house planets, because the sort of independence and sort of like playfulness that I was talking about that Julian wants in his relationships, it shows up in Jenna's natural personality. She has Uranus conjunct the ascendant and Neptune in the 1st house. So she does have that sort of off the beat sort of personality, and sort of like randomness, as obviously you can see in her videos. And Neptune in the 1st is also about like kind of changing whoever it is that they want to be from one day to the next, and Julian's really gonna appreciate that. Let's see, she also has Venus conjunct Pluto in Scorpio in the 10th house. So that's another similarity she will have with Julian, is her sort of need to always know everything about their partner, and just the need to feel like their partner really truly completely belongs to them, and that they're no one else's, and that that they can have that sort of ride or die partnership, and they need to be 100% loyal to them, or else you're just gonna get cut from the team. And it's in the 10th house too. Venus is in the 10th house too. And Julian also has this. So she's also looking for somebody she can admire, and somebody that she really looks up to, and somebody that she sees as successful. And because that Venus is also conjoined with Pluto in a conjunction in the 10th house, she will want somebody who is very strong, and somebody who is also sort of mysterious in a way. And then if we look at her 7th house ruler, which is Mercury, it's also in Libra in the 9th house. And she will really appreciate somebody who she can also, just to further expand on what I mentioned earlier about her Gemini descendant, with her 7th house ruler also in Libra, it enhances that air quality to her relationships. And so she will definitely need that back and forth natural conversation with a partner, somebody who is who can just be her buddy, and sort of have just an ideal relationship with, because Libra is all about that partnership, and it's all about it's very romantic, first of all, and it is all about sharing and cooperating. And being in the 9th house, it increases that sense of adventure. She will want her own independence in the partnership, and she'll need simultaneously that cooperation and that really harmonious element to relationships, but also a sense of independence and a sense of adventure, and a relationship or a partner that really opens her mind and shows her new ways of thinking, new ways of living. It's also sextile to Saturn and square to Neptune. So again, she's also somebody who will wait for the right partner, and she also understands that love and relationships take time and patience and cooperating and just cultivating and hard work. And it's also square to Neptune, which is another aspect that Julian has, Venus square to Neptune. Hers is also in the 10th house, so she has Venus in the 10th house squared to Neptune in the 1st. And because she might not always know exactly who she is from one day to the next, because it can be so fluctuating, that can really affect her relationships and her ideas about love, because her ideas about love are just so idealistic, and it's something that she really aspires to, because it is in the 10th house. That can lead to a lot of disappointment as far as what she feels she can give and what she can offer as a person in the relationship, because of that square to Neptune in the 1st house. And remember earlier when we were talking about Jenna's Chiron conjunct her descendant, and really looking for a partner that she can help and support and guide through life? That theme is also present in her Venus square Neptune. With Venus square Neptune, the person is looking for somebody ultimately that they see needs their help, because these people really just tend to have a lot of compassion in their relationships. It's easy for them to really play that savior role in the relationship. And with Jenna's configuration in particular, her Venus sits in the 10th and her Neptune sits in the 1st. And what does that mean? Well, she herself might identify as that person who is giving, because she has a Neptune in the 1st, and the Neptune is all about the compassion, and so she identifies with that role. And her partner is going to be the Venus in the 10th house, the Venus in the 10th house that she idealizes and needs to look up to, because I brought that up earlier about needing or looking for a partner that is successful, and that she wants to be able to look up to. And then her Neptune in the 1st house puts her into the role of needing to be saved and needing to be as that person who is looking for the compassion. So this has that parallel theme with the Chiron on the descendant. Okay, so looking at Jenna and Julian's synastry, one of the first few things that I like to look for are conjunctions, and conjunctions like automatically stick out to me and are already like a huge signal for what really is a big significator or a big factor in the relationship, because those are really powerful, as well as parallels seen like in overlays, like seeing those overlays parallel to a partner's natal placement. So for example, if you had a lot of somebody's planets coming into your third house and you yourself had like Venus in Gemini or a Gemini descendant, that's already like something you're really gonna enjoy, is somebody having like their planets in your third house, because it is going to increase communication and just like natural back and forth and like an intellectual connection. And if you had Venus in Gemini or a Gemini descendant, like that's up there on your list of things that you will like in a relationship. And I also want to look for aspects, there's like strong aspects to each other's descendant ruler. The descendant is like all about your partnership. The descendant is all about partnership and what you like to see in an ideal mate and what requirements you have for being with somebody and what it takes to really like be in a relationship with you, basically. And if somebody is hitting your descendant ruler, they are somebody that you can easily connect with, and somebody who you could easily somebody who almost feels like they complete you in a way. Okay, so anyway, in the synastry of Jenna and Julian, Julian's Venus in Aries is conjunct Jenna's IC. And what that feels like is it's really hitting home for her. The IC is all about like home and familiarity and your roots and your past, and this can strongly indicate like a past life connection, and Julian just really feels familiar to her and like almost like he is part of her past. And because of that, it really hits home for her. Like his way of expressing love and affection is a way that resonates with how she was brought up, and this can lead to him like really blending into her family and just like feeling like a part of the family. And like because she grew up in like a very Aries like environment as a child, meeting Julian and like seeing him express his like romantic side, that reminds her of home. Another thing is Julian's Mercury in Aries in Jenna's third house. Now, she has a Gemini descendant, and guess what? His planets are falling into her third house. Not only his Mercury, but his Mars too. I'm going to talk about the Mars overlay in a bit, but his Mercury is in her third house, and so they're going to automatically have easy conversations with one another. They are partners who just naturally connect with each other on a mental level. And with his Mars in Pisces hitting her Jupiter in Pisces in the third house, he is going to like increase her optimism and just like really like energize her expansive quality in the way that she talks. There's going to be a lot of like really deep conversations and really like almost sometimes even like spiritual conversations, just about like bigger topics and just deeper, just having like a deeper connection. You know, it's not going to be superficial or surface level types of conversations, but it's really going to be philosophical, and Julian will sort of like motivate Jenna to act on those philosophies that she has, because it's her Jupiter and his Mars, and he's like sort of energizing her and like building her up and making her feel confident in her own ideas. Jenna's Aquarius moon is also conjunct Julian's Saturn in his 8th house. And first of all, Julian has a Scorpio moon. He enjoys depth. He really the only way he can like really feel emotionally connected and nurtured by a partner is when they're like exploring his depths and like really have like a psychological intense connection. And her moon in his 8th house is really doing that for him. He has Saturn in the 8th house, and guess what, Saturn is also his descendant ruler. Saturn is his 7th house ruler. And so her moon on his descendant ruler is such a strong connection in synastry, in really like everyday long-term partnership. Okay, her moon is like really exploring his psychology, and it's adding more warmth and like nurturing to that part of him that is sort of like dark and scary. And and her moon is like coming into his 8th house and like giving it nurturance, like nurturing. And because he has Saturn there, Saturn in the 8th can just feel sort of like dry and like it's sort of like the father figure in your chart. It's like really, it makes things difficult for you. And so he might have like difficulties with letting other people in or like being in really close partnership with them. But Jenna's moon there really allows him to open up and just like softens that area for him. It makes him feel understood, like really deeply understood. Okay, I'm seeing like a lot of conjunctions here and there in the chart, not only to each other's planets, but to each other's angles as well. Jenna's Mars in Capricorn is conjunct Julian's descendant, as well as his Uranus and Neptune. That's really strongly activating his sense of partnership and his willingness to partner with her and just be on the same team as her. It's her Mars hitting his descendant, and his Uranus and Neptune on that descendant is really invigorating for him. And and these planets also being like in Capricorn is going to signal a relationship that is all about stability and working hard, or possibly working together, being business partners. Julian has a lot of idealism towards relationships, and Jenna's Mars there just activates that further, and it shows up in the way like he finds that idealism and that partner that he wants to look up to and like admire as like a role model in Jenna's in her expression of like drive, in how she like directs herself in life, how she goes after what she wants, and how she asserts herself. And Mars conjunct these planets, in particular Neptune and Uranus, is going to give the relationship a very like mystical quality, and just generally being on the same like wavelength, almost psychically. And Julian has like a really strong sense of Jenna's motivation and her drive, and like where she wants to go in life, and like how she directs herself like physically, and how she stands up for herself. Her Mars here really pushes the idea that it's sort of like it's pushing its way into his life, and it's pushing its way into like being partnered with him. It's sort of like an aggressive placement, and it's really going to be strongly felt because it's like exactly on his descendant and conjunct those planets. Okay, moving on from that. Another thing is Jenna's Venus and Pluto in Scorpio conjunct Julian's moon. And I would place his moon in the 5th house, just because it is very close to being in the 5th house. And so generally if it's in between, like if it's less than 5 degrees away from being in the next house, it'll just be in the 5th house. So wow, what a synastry connection, because this is really such a binding aspect to have in synastry. His moon is already in Scorpio. he wants that intense connection with somebody, and to feel safe enough to show like not only his good side but also his ugly side and just every side in between. Okay, and it needs to be that deep and that raw and passionate, and Jenna knows how to tap into that and really explore that side of him with her Venus conjunct Pluto on top of his moon. Because it's in the 5th house, they're going to enjoy like a lot of similar interests, a lot of similar hobbies, and just generally like having a lot of fun together, and like having a lot of like really lighthearted moments, sharing a lot of laughs together, going on lots of dates together, and like, but they won't be anything superficial like at all. It'll be all about just going through life together, like I said earlier, like ride or die. Like literally, this is such a ride or die placement. Her Venus and Pluto in Scorpio is really, just really passionate and really all about exploring, all about getting like straight to the heart of the truth of somebody and of the relationship. And she goes all in with her love, and she does not do anything halfway with it. When she loves somebody, she loves intensely and just wholeheartedly and completely, and like with just an all-consuming passion. And Julian is really gonna like that. And this particular combination of planets in this particular sign is likely to trigger a lot of jealousy and possibly a lot of possessiveness, just because of the quality of the sign. And but it's also going to be a lot of, there's also going to be a lot of like psychological depth to this relationship, and just a lot of romance and a lot of like really intense, like close binding feelings towards one another, just feeling fated, completely fated to be together. And like it's going to be really hard to let go of each other if they ever do get to that point, which they probably won't with this. Like even if it does end, knock on wood, like they're like forever gonna like hold on to each other no matter what. Jenna's Mercury in Libra is conjunct Jenna's Mercury in Aries, and her Mercury is actually conjunct his IC, and his Mercury natally is on his MC. So Julian is like a really funny guy, and he's really outspoken, just really quick-witted and witty and funny, and just like he's known for his reputation. His MC is known for being like a quick thinker and a quick talker and just being very witty, right? And Jenna's Mercury in Libra is opposite that. It's challenging that, and it's helping him learn to listen better, learn how to compromise. His IC is in Libra, meaning his upbringing and his family, and like what he knows is familiar and feels like familiar to him is that Libra quality of just like balance and harmony. And like growing up, perhaps his mom was a very like balanced and like friendly and just cooperative person, and whenever he talks to Jenna and has conversations with her, it challenges his Aries like impulsiveness to just like slow down and think about what others think, or what other people's opinions might be. And that really reminds him of home and how he grew up, because he did grow up with like a family who probably taught him a lot of manners and like taught him how to be proper and like how to rein in all of his like Aries fire. And he brought all that Aries fire out into the world because he has a midheaven in Aries. And Jenna sort of like grounds him a little bit, and it really hits home. It whenever she expresses herself or like communicates with him, like it reminds him of his past and where he came from. And Julian, as a Cancer rising, Julian is very familiar with that, and he probably enjoys that. He probably enjoys like feeling nostalgic and things or people who remind him of home. I also want to point out that having personal planets on each other's IC, such as in Jenna and Julian's synastry, where Jenna's Mercury falls on Julian's IC and Julian's Venus conjuncts Jenna's IC, that is going, like having mutual fourth house overlays like that, especially hitting the IC, is going to put a lot of emphasis on building a home together and creating your own legacy. It's just all about like nesting together basically, and really just because you have such a sense of familiarity with each other, it's easy to feel comfortable together. It's easy to feel kind of vulnerable with each other. And so because of that, because they both trigger such sensitive, strong points in each other's chart, that can really lead to building a long-lasting home together, and whatever that might consist of, whether it is children or pets, that is going to be a really big theme for them because it's mutual. It's mutual that they both feel very open and comfortable and close with one another. So that covers their overlays, just like the main points. That's obviously not everything, but those are the ones that really stood out to me, especially the conjunctions. So I kind of want to elaborate a little bit more on those conjunctions because those are such a key part of Jenna and Julian's synastry. They're really, really strong, and they're like, when you have conjunctions like that, it is just, it's going to be really strongly felt in the relationship. And so I want to kind of get a little bit more into detail about those conjunctions. So beginning with their Moon, Pluto, and Venus conjunction. First of all, Moon and Venus is together is super romantic, and it's just ideal for like a romantic relationship because you have somebody's way of style of loving and just showing affection, which is Jenna's Venus in Scorpio. It's hitting it's hitting the moon, which is a very vulnerable and soft spot, and Julian is probably going to feel very exposed. Like his Scorpio moon is going to feel very vulnerable, and just but vulnerable in a good way because it is going to feel seen and nurtured by just Jenna's natural way of showing love and affection. And it's joined by her Pluto. And it's just going to add an even more like plutonic, like sort of dark and scary kind of flavor to Julian's already Scorpio moon. It's almost like he's not really ever alone in the relationship. Like she's always watching, like she always knows what he's doing or what he's up to, like how he's feeling, really. Like it's hard for him to hide in the relationship because there is not going to be any secrets between them. There is not going to be like anything held back or just under the covers, because it's always going to be like out in the open, and both of them are just natural detectives. Okay, so nothing that either of them can hide will ever really escape the other person. Julian's Saturn in Aquarius conjunct Jenna's moon in Aquarius. This can really add some stability and just a long-term quality to the relationship because Saturn is it is a teacher, and it does add like a maturity to the relationship, where, you know, Julian is like a few years younger than Jenna, right? And so this really brings forth the maturity in him, and it really like helps him to step up his game with Jenna. And like when he takes charge and when he like buckles down and gets serious about life, that really hits her moon hard, and it feels like she can count on him, and it feels like she is being provided for. And you know, it's I would say that in this, like normally in like any other relationship, Saturn conjunct moon can feel pretty a little too stuffy, a little too hard and difficult, and like the moon person's feelings is just like not being seen by the Saturn person who like just dismisses it. But in this case, his Saturn is in Aquarius, and so it's in like a really good sign for Saturn. And just for them in particular, just considering the particular individuals we have in front of us, I think it works for them, and I think it's a good synastry component to have for them in particular. And with the Mars conjunct Jupiter, that is just going to make the relationship really fun and just really lighthearted. And so like it really balances out like the intensity of that Moon Pluto Venus conjunction that they have. It's definitely going to add some lightheartedness to the relationship, and it's just a very like encouraging energy, just about like two people who are really very boisterous together. And in Pisces, it might not seem super energetic, but it's gonna have like sort of a more of a relaxed feel. I can definitely see, versus if it was like Mars conjunct Jupiter in like a fire sign. This one is very much a relaxed type of energy, and it's Jenna's Jupiter conjunct Julian's Mars in the 9th house. So she might inspire him a lot to travel, inspire him to like learn or continue learning. She might inspire him to like pursue higher learning or pursue some like higher calling, and to just like explore life, just be more adventurous in life, I think. And his Mars in her 3rd house, in her touching her Jupiter, I think I covered this already. It was just like giving her more physical and inspiring energy to like live out her philosophies, because she is like sort of like a natural philosopher. Having Jupiter in the 3rd house and having his Mars there can encourage and motivate her to really act on them, really act on those beliefs. They also have mutual aspects to each other's vertex. So Julian's Chiron is conjunct Jenna's vertex, and this is happening in the sign of Leo. And so Jenna's vertex, which is like the fated point in your chart, it's all about like karma and where certain things happen in life that like when your vertex in your natal chart is activated, that's when sort of like turning points happen in your life. Usually like really big, huge, life-changing events happen when there's a transit on your vertex. And it can also happen when somebody's planets conjunct your vertex in synastry. And here Julian can sort of act as like that person or that individual that either Jenna feels that she can help or save or guide through life, or he is that person for her. She was fated to be there and like heal that for him and help him through those wounds, and to like understand those wounds, and to just basically lead him on the journey towards healing. And it's also in his 1st house, so those wounds are like a huge part of him and a huge part of his identity. His Chiron is also conjunct her vertex, and it's in her 8th house. So when they partner together, like in really close, intimate partnership, touches that part of her that's hidden away from everybody else, and it's sort of like a secret that she keeps. I would go to say that they met during a time in her life, because it's her vertex, and that's sort of like the life-changing point in the chart. And so I would say that either they met during a time in her life where she was at her like darkest or at her most vulnerable, or he sort of came into her life and acted as sort of like a savior figure, sort of like somebody who like took care of her and healed the wounds that she was facing at the time. Jenna's Saturn is conjunct Julian's vertex, and it's happening in her 12th house. So this has a really like similar effect to his Chiron in her 8th house conjunct her vertex. But since it's her Saturn touching his like fated karmic point in his chart, she is serving as sort of like the authority to him, like sort of like a wise older figure in his life. And she entered his life during a time where he was really exploring his creative self-expression, where he was trying to create something of himself and just trying to like make his mark on the world and be seen and find his own like self-expression, his own creative self-expression where he could shine. Perhaps Julian was going through a time in his life where that was like the main theme, or that was like a big lesson for him to learn. And Jenna really taught him about that and really showed him how to do that. She sort of like came along and showed him how to be a performer, how to be creative, and like how to embrace the spotlight. So another thing that I want to talk about is a lot of Jenna's planets are forming like really strong, almost exact, really supportive aspects to Julian's ascendant. And your ascendant is your self-expression, right? It's your identity and how you show up in the world and how you present yourself, like what you really identify as. And Jenna's planet supporting that really encouraged Julian to be himself, and it really allows him to be himself, and he feels like he can just be himself, and like it feels like his identity is being supported by her, which is like a really good thing to find in synastry. And so in particular, it's her Sun and her Jupiter forming easy aspects to his ascendant, and then that her Mars is like on his descendant, and it's really like challenging him. I think that gives enough like fire and like fun and enthusiasm that his Venus and Aries needs. As a Venus and Aries, he's actually gonna really like that overlay of her Mars coming into his house of partnership and just like giving it that boost, giving it that like confrontation, like, hey, I don't know, it has like sort of like this teasing quality to it, like, hey, chase me, or hey, I'm here, are you gonna catch me, or what? You know, it kind of has that sort of feeling. Like that's what comes to mind when I see this overlay of Mars in the 7th house. Her Jenna's ascendant is also being pretty strongly positively aspected by Julian's planets too, also by his Sun, also by his Venus, also by Saturn. And except for like a Mars, his Mars scoring her ascendant. And you can kind of see this play out in real life, like in their videos where his Mars in Pisces, like silliness is kind of clashing with Jenna's Sagittarius ascendant, because like Sagittarius is a straight shooter, right? Like they want to like get straight to the point, and they have a very specific goal in mind. And then this Julian's Mars in Pisces kind of comes in and like is like sort of throws in like this random ass energy of just like being really out of the blue and just saying like some off the wall comment, and it kind of throws her off a little bit, but it's funny. Like it just comes off like in a really funny, lighthearted way, and it's not like, it doesn't come off as dramatic or like crazy intense or scary. But anyway, his Sun is also supportive of her ascendant and his Venus too. So when you have like somebody else's planets like forming supportive aspects to your ascendant, you just feel at ease with them, you feel relaxed with them, and like again, like you can be yourself, and like you're being seen and accepted and just encouraged to be yourself. So that's something really nice to have in synastry. Okay, so I think that's all I want to talk about with the synastry between Jenna and Julian. I really enjoyed looking at their charts and looking at their synastry because there was just a lot to unpack, and I wish I could talk about everything because there's a lot going on. There's so many like really positive aspects and a lot of like good challenging aspects too, which you know, we all need a little bit of everything in our relationships. So yeah, I hope you found this informative. If you're a fan of Jenna and Julian, of all their content and their craziness, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you want to subscribe to my channel to learn more about astrology, or if you're just curious now about astrology and synastry and compatibility, I'm definitely going to be doing more like famous people's birth charts or famous people's synastry very soon. Remember to subscribe, remember to like the video and turn on notifications so that you can be informed whenever I post. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again soon.